is the enhancements and prepayments for sales orders. As part of a customer's credit terms, you can set a percentage prepayment requirement before a sales order is processed. To do this, on the credit terms screen, you must set the credit term as visible to customers and installment type to single for the order prepayment settings section to display. The order prepayment settings are blank by default. Select Prepayment Required and set a prepayment percent. This will be applied to all customers that are assigned to this credit term, but can be overridden during sales order entry. The prepayment percent functionality is available for sales order types with automation behavior sales order and AR document type invoice. Here I have a sales order of order type SO that I created for my customer. On the Financial Settings tab, we can see the prepayment percentage has defaulted from the customer's credit terms, and the status of the sales order is awaiting payment. The options for creating a shipment or preparing an invoice are both unavailable while awaiting payment. At this stage, I can opt to override the payment and either change the prepayment percent or the prepayment amount. This setting takes precedence over the credit term prepayment percent. Whenever the sales order is changed, the prepayment amount is automatically recalculated. The prepayment requirements satisfied checkbox is read-only and clear until a payment has been applied to the sales order that meets or exceeds the required prepayment amount. This is then automatically selected. If for any reason the payment is changed or deleted, causing the prepayment condition not to be met, this checkbox is automatically cleared. The required prepayment percent and amount is displayed on the sales order report. Next, we will look at the changes in processing prepayments and payments for a sales order. Carrying on with our previous example, in 2021.1, it is now possible to add payments to sales orders without requiring access to the Payments and Applications screen. This allows for users that have no access to accounts receivable to create payments for sales orders. On the Payments tab, when selecting to create payment or create prepayment, a Create Payment dialog box is opened instead of the Payments and Applications screen. The payment can be made in full or adjusted to match the prepayment required. The payment method and cash account detail default from the Payment Information section on the Sales Order Financial Settings tab. Whether a payment reference is required is determined by the Require Payment Reference on Entry checkbox on the General Settings tab of Accounts Receivable Preferences. On selecting OK, the payment is created. When the required prepayment is made, the status of the sales order changes from awaiting payment to open. The status of the payment is controlled by the Hold Documents on Entry setting in the Data Entry section of the Accounts Receivable Preferences. When selected, the payment is created with an On Hold status. When cleared, the payment is created with a Balanced status. On the Financial Settings tab, the Prepayment Requirements Satisfied checkbox has been automatically updated, and the ability to create a shipment has been activated. The sales order workflow has been updated for sales orders with a prepayment percentage. This consists of the following steps. Is approval required, and if so, has the order been approved? If not, the order moves to pending approval status until approved. Are there any payments applied to the sales order that require validation? If there are, the order is placed on pending processing status until validated. If not, you can skip step 3. Of the payments requiring validation, do they satisfy the defined prepayment percent? If not, the order is assigned awaiting payment status until sufficient payment is received. This takes both the payment amount applied to the sales order and the total payment amount transferred to invoices into account. Does the customer have a credit limit? If so, has this been exceeded? Is the order type checkbox Hold Documents on Failed Credit Checks selected? If so, the status moves to Credit Hold. If a sales order passes all verification checks, the sales order is assigned an open status and the user can create shipments and process the sales order further. When a user prepares an invoice for a shipment or directly for a sales order, any prepayments that were applied to the sales order are transferred to the invoice. Invoice processing has been changed for payments that are applied to the invoice. When an invoice is created, the system checks if payments applied to the invoice require any validation checks and places the invoice on pending process status. If any payments applied to the invoice require validations, the invoice cannot be released while on pending process status. A credit hold status is assigned if the customer's credit limit has been exceeded or the amount of the invoice is increased, causing a difference between the sales order and invoice amounts. If this difference has not been recorded as a write-off amount, this will also place the invoice on credit hold. Next, we will look at the new workflow and order management documents. In the 2021.1 release, the processing of sales orders, shipments, and invoices has been redesigned to use the new workflow engine. Those actions most relevant to the current status of the document opened on the screen now display directly on the screen toolbar as well as in the Actions menu. Here we have the sales orders changes, likewise for shipments and for invoices. The 2021.1 release notes contains a table outlining the actions preset to display on the toolbar for each screen's document types status combinations. This is an important note for organizations that use automation steps, import scenarios, or export scenarios for the following screens. In 2021.1, users that work on customizations will need to redesign the automation of processes related to the applicable screens using the new workflow engine. There is a separate video that demonstrates how to use the workflow engine to do this. Next, we will look at validating bills against purchase orders. On the Purchase Orders Preferences screen, there is a new field for Bill Against Commitments. When Validate with Warning is selected, on saving an AP bill, the system will validate the bill against the purchase order and display a warning if the quantity or the unit cost is higher. Here I have a purchase order with an ordered quantity of 1 and a unit cost of $5,000. If I go and create my AP bill, on changing the quantity or changing the unit cost, warnings are generated. Here on the tab header, it lets me know that some of the bill lines differ from the corresponding lines of the related purchase order. If I look at the warnings on each of these fields, this one tells me that the quantity at the purchase order level was 1, and here that the unit cost at the purchase order level was $5,000. The final topic relates to changes in transferring the unit cost from a purchase receipt to the AP bill. Previously, when a bill was created from a purchase receipt, the unit cost for that bill was taken from the related purchase order. In the 2021.1 release, that has changed so that the unit cost is taken from the purchase receipt. You can see from this example I have a purchase order with a unit cost of $289.21. On creating the purchase receipt, I have changed the unit cost to $300. On creating the AP bill, you can see that the unit cost has come from the purchase receipt. You can now change the currency rate for the AP bill from the purchase receipt screen. To access this functionality, you need to have multi-currency accounting enabled, the Allow Changing Currency Rate on Receipt checkbox selected in Purchase Order Preferences, and Enable Rate Override selected on the supplier screen. Here we have a purchase order that I've entered for a foreign currency supplier with a US dollar exchange rate of $1.45. You can see that the unit cost is $79.49, and if we look at the base currency, it is $115.26. In purchase receipts, I can change the rate for US dollar from $1.45 to $1.35. On selecting OK, this updates the purchase receipt to the new exchange rate, and you can see that the estimated IN extended cost is now $107.31. This is in the base currency, while the unit cost and extended cost remain in the foreign currency. On creating the AP bill, the unit cost and extended cost has all come through from the purchase receipt exchange rate base currency of $107.31. And you can see on the rate selection form, this is pulling through the US dollar $1.35 exchange rate.